She demands child support, but Billionaire CEO sued her instead. Now he pledged to pay $50 million yearly. Gray morning light drags across the silent courtroom, dust motes drifting like slow-falling snow. The judge's gavel cracks, sharp, final, echoing off the cold walls. At the front, small brown hands grip the wooden table, knuckles blanched with fear. Joshua Morris, 6 years old, rises before anyone can stop him. His voice trembles, but it carries. "Your Honor, please don't let him take us away from our mama." The room freezes. Eva Morris's face, drained, trembling, mascara smudged from the night she didn't sleep, crumples at her son's words. Across the aisle, Adams Whitmore, perfect Tom Ford suit pressed flat, jaw locked tight, refuses to blink. A single muscle twitches, betraying something he won't name. Joshua swallows hard. "My mama didn't do anything wrong. She just wants him to help us, like daddies are supposed to." Chaos erupts, murmurs, gasps, the judge pounding the bench for order. In a world built on power and prejudice, what does it take for a billionaire to finally see the truth? Freeze on Adams's face. A flicker, guilt, recognition, fear. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. The elevator doors opened with a soft hydraulic sigh, releasing Adams Whitmore onto the 60th floor, his kingdom. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Whitmore Technologies, turning the glass walls into mirrors of steel and sky. From this height, the city looked orderly, predictable, a sprawling circuit board of traffic grids and glass towers. Down there, lives were messy. Up here, everything obeyed him. Adams crossed the polished concrete floor toward his office, the hum of the engineering floor fading behind him. His world was calibrated. Meetings scheduled to the minute, investments tracked to the decimal, mergers executed without emotion. His assistants often whispered that Adams didn't live his life. He ran it like a machine. And today, the machine was in perfect order. On his desk lay the documents for the HelioNet acquisition, a $2.3 billion deal that would make him the youngest self-made billionaire to dominate 3 sectors: consumer tech, cybersecurity, and AI integration. $8.7 billion in total valuation. And after this morning's signatures, the crown jewel would finally be his. He slipped into his chair, straightened his tie, and opened the file. Precision, control, momentum. A knock tapped lightly on the door. Adams didn't look up. If it's not HelioNet, cancel it. Another knock. He exhaled sharply. "Marcus," I said. The door creaked open. Marcus stepped inside, clutching a manila envelope as if it were radioactive. His expression, careful, apologetic, made Adams finally raise his eyes. "This just came for you," Marcus said. "Courier delivery. No return address. It's from a family law firm." That got his attention. Adams's jaw tightened. "Family law?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir. I thought you'd want it immediately." For the first time all morning, the immaculate order of Adams's life flickered. He took the envelope, its rough texture at odds with the smooth, predictable environment around him. He didn't thank Marcus, just waited until the door clicked shut. Then he slid his finger under the seal. Inside, a letter, legal forms, a photograph, and a sheet of paper with the unmistakable black and white layout of a DNA test. His heartbeat didn't spike. His breath didn't quicken. Adams had trained himself to respond to the unexpected with ice, not fire. But when he unfolded the letter, the first sentence made that ice crack. Mr. Whitmore, this letter is to inform you that our client, Eva Morris, is seeking child support for your biological children, Joshua and Jasmine. His pulse finally stuttered. He read the next line. Enclosed are DNA results confirming with 99.98% probability that you are the biological father of the 6-year-old twins. The world stopped. Impossible, he whispered. He scanned the DNA report. The legal demands. A handwritten note at the bottom, unmistakably her handwriting. Adams, I didn't want this. I never wanted it to come to this. But Jasmine is very sick, and I can't do this alone anymore. Eva. He dropped the letter as if it burned him. The name alone stabbed through 7 years of steel-reinforced repression. Eva Sinclair. Back when she'd been one of the brightest software engineers on his early team. Brilliant. Sharp. Soft-hearted in ways he hadn't understood. Their 3-month relationship had been too intense, too consuming, too public. Investors started whispering. Optics. Distraction. Complications. He could still remember the day he ended it, in that same clinical tone he used for business deals. I need to focus on the company. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just nodded, quietly, heartbreak tucked behind professionalism. 6 months later, she resigned. He didn't ask why. Didn't check in. Didn't look back. He forced himself to look at the photograph now sliding out from the documents. 2 children, a boy and a girl, standing in front of an apartment building. The girl had a bright smile, missing a front tooth, her little brown face framed by curly puffs. The boy had his arms protectively around her shoulders, his jaw set in a way that was disturbingly familiar. Adams stared at the boy's face. Square jaw, sharp eyes, a gaze that looked too old for 6. His own features stared back at him. Adams shoved the photo aside, but his hand trembled. Just once, but enough that he noticed. No, he muttered. No, this isn't real. This isn't. He snatched up his phone. Thornton. His lawyer answered on the first ring. Adams? I'm in a meeting. I need you in my office. Now. What's going on? Bring a litigation portfolio. That was all it took. 20 minutes later, Thornton, tall, silver-haired, calculating, stood in front of Adams's desk, flipping through the documents. He gave a long exhale. Well, this is unexpected. It's a shakedown, Adams snapped. 7 years. Thornton. 7 years she said nothing. And suddenly she appears demanding money? 15,000 monthly, plus medical expenses. His voice sharpened. Fraud. It's extortion. Has to be. Thornton closed the folder. You want to file a countersuit? Immediately. Hit her with everything. Fraud. Defamation. Parental alienation. I want her backed into a corner before she thinks of going to the press. Thornton hesitated. A dangerous sign. Adams, a white billionaire suing a black single mother over child support. The optics. I don't care about optics, Adams said coldly. I care about truth. Thornton studied him, brow slightly raised. And you're certain the truth is on your side? Biology doesn't equal responsibility, Adams shot back. You sure that's the argument you want to stake your reputation on? A muscle ticked in Adams's jaw. Yes. Thornton nodded once. All right. I'll draft the filings. When Thornton left, Adams dropped back into his chair, shoulders rigid. He tried to return to the HelioNet documents, but the words blurred. His hand drifted back toward the photo. The girl's smile. The boy's solemn eyes. His eyes. He flipped the photo face down, then leaned back in his chair and stared at the skyline, the empire he'd built, the world he controlled. But control suddenly felt thinner, fragile, like glass that had been tapped too hard. For the first time in a long while, the view from the 60th floor didn't calm him. It warned him. The Oakdale district looked different at night, a patchwork of dim streetlights, cracked sidewalks, and tired buildings that leaned a little from years of weather and neglect. But inside apartment 2B, Eva Morris fought every day to create a refuge, a world where her children could still believe life might be kind. Her modest two-bedroom apartment was worn but clean. The faded carpet had survived too many tenants to hide its stains. The linoleum in the kitchen curled at the edges. A draft slipped through the window frames no matter how many towels she tucked along the sills. But she scrubbed it all until it shined, hoping that cleanliness could disguise poverty. Tonight, the kitchen table disappeared beneath a mountain of bills. Medical statements, overdue notices, insurance rejections, collection threats printed in all caps. A single flickering bulb buzzed overhead, blinking at the exact moment she reached for another envelope, as if the apartment itself winced every time she parsed another number she couldn't afford. A soft voice broke the silence. "Mama, is Jazzy gonna be okay?" Eva froze. Joshua stood in the doorway, barefoot on the cold floor, wearing pajamas 2 sizes too small. His curls stuck up in every direction, and he held the sleeve of his shirt the way he did when he was nervous. Eva slid the bills together in one swift motion and placed a hand protectively over them before he could read the words past due. She turned, forcing a smile so gentle it nearly hurt her face. "Of course she is, baby. Dr. Reynolds said the new medication will help her breathe easier." She didn't say the rest, the part that sat like a stone in her throat. That medication cost $3,200 a month. Money she absolutely did not have. Joshua's eyes lingered on her too long, as if he already suspected the truth. Eva touched his cheek. "Go check on your sister for me, okay?" He nodded and padded down the hall. Eva waited until he disappeared into Jasmine's room before releasing the breath she'd been holding. Her hands shook as she swept the bills aside, but one envelope slipped free and fell open. Insurance denial. Treatment declined. Not medically essential. Her stomach twisted. She walked to Jasmine's room. The small bedside lamp glowed warmly, casting soft amber light across pink curtains and a wall covered in hand-drawn stars. But the warmth couldn't soften the image at the center of the room. Jasmine lying in bed, an oxygen monitor glowing steady green beside her, its soft hum filling the silence. Her little girl's chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. The mask covered her mouth and nose, fogging slightly with each exhale. Even asleep, she looked tired. Severe asthma. Diagnosed 6 months ago. Worsened 3 months ago. And in the last 6 weeks, nearly fatal. The biologic medication Dr. Reynolds recommended was the only thing that could stabilize her long term, but Eva's insurance had declared it non-essential. She'd applied for patient assistance. Denied. Tried a charity fund. Denied. Called the hospital billing department 6 times in 1 week. No relief. No options. So Eva worked more hours, late-night coding contracts, emergency debugging for companies who'd barely pay her. She sold her engagement ring, pawned her laptop, then borrowed one from a friend to keep earning income. Maxed out credit cards. Borrowed from her elderly mother, who had nothing to give but insisted anyway. It still wasn't enough. Joshua sat beside Jasmine's bed now, holding her hand, whispering something only siblings could understand. The sight twisted Eva's heart into something fragile. And then the thought returned, the one she'd spent 7 years burying, denying, hating. Adams. She leaned against the doorframe and closed her eyes. She had sworn she would never contact him again. Ever. When she discovered she was pregnant with twins, she'd sat on her bathroom floor with the test in her shaking hands and made a calculation. He wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want them. Not children with her. Not biracial children whose existence complicated the spotless image he was constructing. Even after she left his company, even after she cried into her pillow for months, she'd held on to one promise. I will not give him the chance to hurt us again. She managed alone. Barely at first, then desperately, then resiliently. 7 years of stretching dollars, of skipping meals so her kids could eat, of taking freelance jobs while Jasmine napped in her car seat. She thought she could keep doing it. Until the night Jasmine's lips turned blue. The memory sliced her open, Jasmine gasping, tiny fingers clawing at her throat, Joshua screaming for help, Eva sprinting down the hall with her child in her arms, pounding on a neighbor's door for a ride to the ER. The doctor's words afterward haunted her. If you'd arrived 2 minutes later, she wouldn't have made it. Pride couldn't save her daughter's life. But a father might. She resisted the thought for days, pacing the apartment, staring at bills, listening for Jasmine's labored breathing. And finally, with trembling hands, she wrote the letter. Not to ask for love. Not to ask for reconciliation. Just help. A father's help. She mailed it. And 3 days later, while making oatmeal with generic, flavorless oats, she heard the mail slot click. The envelope lay on the floor like an omen. Whitmore Technologies. Legal Division. Her breath caught. She opened it slowly, praying, hoping. Then everything inside her broke. Adams Whitmore versus Eva Morris. Fraud. Defamation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Parental alienation. He was suing her for asking him to help save their daughter, demanding $5 million in damages. She sank into a kitchen chair, the lawsuit papers trembling in her hands. He wasn't just refusing to help, she whispered. He was attacking me. Her chest tightened. Her vision blurred. A tear hit the page. Then another. She buried her face in her hands, trying to hold herself together. But her body shook from the weight of it all. A small voice cut through the spiral. Mom! Joshua stood in the doorway. What's wrong? Eva lifted her head, forcing a smile that could barely stay together. Just some grown-up stuff, baby. Complicated. But Joshua's eyes flicked to the papers in her lap. To the name Whitmore. To the number with more zeros than anything he'd ever seen. His throat bobbed. It's him, isn't it? He whispered. He's not gonna help Jazzy. She opened her mouth, to reassure him, to tell him not to worry, to hold the broken world up on her shoulders the way she always did. But the words didn't come. Only silence. And the soft, steady beep of the oxygen monitor in the next room. Michelle Jackson's office sits on the corner of Ashland and Briar, a converted brownstone nestled between a laundromat and a soul food takeout spot. The brass numbers on the door are faded, the steps creak under weight, and the waiting room chairs have been reupholstered more times than anyone remembers. But the place hums with purpose. Quiet, steady, unshakable. This is where people come when they have nowhere left to run and nothing left but truth. Eva sits on the edge of a wooden chair, twisting her fingers together until the knuckles ache. Her suit jacket feels tight, the thrift store fabric scratchy against her skin. She tries to steady her breathing as the door opens and Michelle Jackson steps in. Michelle, mid-40s, dark curls pulled into a neat bun, has eyes that miss nothing. She carries a thick folder under one arm, its edges frayed from use. She's not glamorous like Adams's attorneys, not polished to corporate shine, but she radiates confidence, competence, command. "Eva," she says, offering a hand. Her grip is firm, grounding. "Thanks for coming." Eva forces a small smile. "Thank you for seeing me." Michelle sits across from her and places the folder on the table with a soft thud. "I've reviewed everything. The letter you sent him. The lawsuit he filed. And Eva, this? This is one of the most aggressive countersuits I have ever seen in family law." A cold shiver slips down Eva's spine. Can he actually sue me for asking for child support? Michelle's lips tighten. He's not suing you for asking. He's suing you to scare you, to bury you under legal fees and pressure so you back down. It's intimidation, a classic power play. Eva's throat constricts. I just wanted help for Jasmine. I wasn't trying to cause trouble." "I know." Michelle leans forward, voice gentler now. But he does not want to acknowledge what this means. Not publicly, not financially, not emotionally. Eva lowers her eyes to her trembling hands. Then Michelle says, "I'm taking your case pro bono." Eva looks up, startled. "What? No, you don't even know me. Why would you?" Michelle interrupts softly. "Because 15 years ago I was you. Different man, different circumstances, but the same imbalance. And someone stepped in to help me when I couldn't help myself. I'm just paying it forward." The room seems to tilt, emotion pulling tight in Eva's chest. I don't know what to say." "Say you're ready," Michelle says. "Because this will get ugly. He'll paint you as a gold digger, a liar, an unfit mother. He'll use his money to twist the narrative and weaponize the system. Can you handle that?" Eva inhales slowly, thinking of Jasmine struggling for breath, of Joshua's hopeful eyes, of late nights holding her children through fear she never let them see. "Yes," she whispers. "I can handle anything as long as my children are okay." Michelle nods once. "Good. Then let's fight." By the time Eva arrives, the courthouse still carries the chill of early morning. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, buzzing intermittently. She smooths the front of her suit, the same one she wore for a job interview 5 years ago, and tries to ignore the worn cuffs and the slight tear under the arm. Her stomach churns as she steps into courtroom 12. Wooden benches, high ceilings, everything too bright, too cold, too large. Michelle stands beside her, calm and poised. Then, he enters. Adams Whitmore arrives 3 minutes before the hearing, flanked by 4 attorneys, 2 paralegals, and an assistant tapping notes into a tablet. His Tom Ford suit looks like it belongs in a movie, its price easily exceeding Eva's monthly rent. His expression remains unreadable, gaze fixed ahead. He walks past her without a flicker of acknowledgement, without a breath out of place. The distance between their worlds feels like an ocean. Judge William Anderson, a tall, stern man in his 60s, enters, robe sweeping dramatically behind him. His presence quiets the room instantly. Court is now in session. He glances over the documents briefly, then looks up, expression unimpressed. "Mr. Thornton," he says, addressing Adams's lead attorney, Your client is suing the mother of his 6-year-old daughter for damages totaling $5 million? Thornton straightens. Yes, Your Honor. The timing and motivations are suspicious. Ms. Morris initiated contact only when Mr. Whitmore's acquisition of Michelle rises. Your Honor, the DNA tests confirm paternity. This case involves medical care for a child with severe asthma, care that Ms. Morris has exhausted all resources to provide. Thornton lifts a brow. Allegedly severe. We have yet to verify. Michelle's voice sharpens, emotion threading through steel. Jasmine Morris has had 2 emergency interventions this month alone. She sleeps with an oxygen monitor. She is 6 years old and fighting to breathe. And Mr. Whitmore's response was to sue her mother. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. Judge Anderson leans forward. Mr. Thornton, does your client dispute the paternity results? Thornton shifts. No, Your Honor. Independent testing confirmed. So Mr. Whitmore is the father, Judge Anderson continues, tone cooling dangerously. Yet instead of addressing his child's medical needs, he is suing the mother for asking for support. Have I got that right? The silence is heavy. Even Adams shifts, jaw tightening. Judge Anderson finally speaks. Here's my order. The court will conduct its own DNA verification and mandate an independent medical evaluation of the child. We reconvene in 2 weeks. His stare lands on Adams, unblinking. Mr. Whitmore, I suggest you spend that time thinking very carefully about what kind of man sues the mother of his 6-year-old daughter instead of making sure that child can breathe. A tremor runs through the room. Adams's attorneys exchange uneasy looks. As everyone files out, Adams finally turns. His eyes land on Eva. For a heartbeat, just one, something breaks through, recognition, maybe regret, maybe something far older. A memory. A flaw in the armor. But then the wall slams back into place, cold and impenetrable. Eva lifts her chin. She won't look away, won't shrink. This isn't about pride. It's about survival. Outside the courtroom, Adams disappears down the corridor, swallowed by his legal team. Eva stands alone with Michelle, the storm gathering beyond the tall windows, casting the hallway in muted gray. We'll be ready, Michelle says quietly. Eva nods, though her knees tremble. Somewhere down the hall, thunder rumbles, low, distant, inevitable. The war has begun. Whitmore Technologies' boardroom gleams with glass, chrome, and the soft hum of digital displays. The walls pulse with stock tickers and market projections, each one affirming Adams Whitmore's dominance. He stands at the head of the long conference table, posture immaculate, voice steady as he discusses quarterly projections and upcoming acquisitions. Here, he is untouchable. Here, he controls everything. Or so he believes. His phone buzzes against the polished surface, an unknown number. He ignores it at first. The board members continue their discussion, waiting for Adams's next directive. But the phone buzzes again. Something, instinct, irritation, something he can't name, pushes him to pick it up. Take 5, he mutters, stepping out into the hallway, closing the conference room door behind him. He answers. Whitmore. A woman's voice, steady, professional, urgent. Mr. Whitmore? This is Dr. Sarah Reynolds from Mercy Children's Hospital. He frowns. I'm sorry, you have the wrong. I'm calling about your daughter, Jasmine Morris. His world stops. What? The word lodges in his throat. I'm not. Mr. Whitmore, Dr. Reynolds interrupts gently but firmly. Your daughter is in critical condition. She was admitted in severe respiratory distress. We need parental consent for emergency intubation. Adams's heartbeat slams in his ears. Where's her mother? Ms. Morris is unconscious. She collapsed from exhaustion when Jasmine stopped breathing. You are the only other legal guardian on file. We need your authorization. Now. Time fractures. Adams doesn't remember hanging up. He doesn't remember bursting into the boardroom to grab his keys. His team watches in confusion as the man who always walks, never runs, sprints down the corporate hallway, Ty whipping behind him like a broken tether. His car tears out of the parking garage, tires screeching. The city blurs, buildings, traffic lights, pedestrians all smearing together in a smear of panic. His hands grip the steering wheel so tightly the leather creaks. His breath is shallow. Every thought slams into him at once. Critical condition. She stopped breathing. Emergency intubation. Eva collapsed. 20 minutes stretch into something unbearable, suffocating. The world outside the windshield becomes a distant, meaningless flicker. He only knows one thing. He has to get there. He has to get there now. He pushes through the double doors, breathless. The sharp scent of antiseptic hits him first. Then the beeping, the rhythmic hiss of a ventilator, the low murmur of nurses moving with grim efficiency. And then he sees her. A tiny body on a hospital bed, dwarfed by tubes and wires. Jasmine's brown skin is pale, her eyelids fluttering faintly. Machines breathe for her, lift her small chest up and down in uneven rhythm. Beside her sits Eva. She looks like she has aged 10 years in one night, hair disheveled, face drained, posture slumped forward. But her hand remains locked around Jasmine's. Unmoving, unwavering, a lifeline. When Eva lifts her head, her eyes meet Adams's. They hold no anger, no accusation, just exhaustion so deep it seems carved into her bones. Dr. Reynolds steps forward. Mr. Whitmore. Jasmine is stable for now, but still critical. Adams forces his voice to work. What does she need? She needs a biologic medication, one not covered by standard insurance, Dr. Reynolds says. Without it, these attacks will continue, each one more dangerous than the last. How much? Approximately $3,200 per month. With specialist monitoring, hospitalizations, and emergency care, annual costs could reach $60,000 to $80,000. Adams swallows hard, not because of the number, but because he knows that for Eva, that cost is an impossible mountain. A soft voice behind him. Mister. He turns. Joshua stands in the doorway, holding a worn stuffed dinosaur. His clothes are too small. His socks don't match. His eyes, so large, so hopeful, mirror Adams's own. The lady at the desk said, "You're our daddy." Joshua swallows. Is that true? Adams's throat tightens. Yes, he manages. It's true. Joshua steps closer, clutching the dinosaur to his chest. Does that mean you're gonna help Jazzy get better? Mama says daddies are supposed to help. Something inside Adams breaks, cleanly, irreversibly. The man who negotiates billion-dollar deals cannot speak. He can only nod, eyes burning. Eva watches quietly, guarded, waiting, not begging, just bracing. He looks back at Jasmine, at the small rise and fall of her chest supported by machines. and he feels a memory slam into him. A 14-year-old boy sitting beside a hospital bed. His mother fading. His father absent. The empty promise, "I'll come tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. Adams had sworn he would never become his father. Yet here he stands, repeating the same sin. He pulls in a breath that trembles. "Joshua," he says softly, "I'm your daddy. And yes, I'm going to make sure Jazzy gets better." Joshua's face lights up with fragile hope. Eva exhales, a sound halfway between relief and heartbreak. Tears roll down her cheeks before she can stop them. Adams pulls out his phone and dials. "Rob," he says when Thornton answers, "drop the lawsuit. Immediately. All of it. Adams, we need to discuss." "No. Drop it. And get me whatever I need to sign to authorize full medical care for Jasmine Morris. Top specialists. Full coverage. Whatever it costs." "Are you sure?" Adams's voice crackles with emotion. "Do it. Now." He hangs up. Then he turns to Eva. Her eyes are red, swollen, fearful. He steps closer, voice unsteady. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "For everything. For the lawsuit. For disappearing. For letting my pride come before my..." His voice breaks. "Before my daughter." Eva closes her eyes. Her voice is barely a breath. "She's not your daughter because of a DNA test, Adams. She's your daughter because you choose to be her father. Today, this is the first time you've ever made that choice." A long silence. "I know," he says. "And I'm choosing it now. Not just today. Every day, if you'll let me." Eva nods once. A small, fragile surrender. Hours later, the ICU is quiet. Adams sits in a stiff hospital chair beside Jasmine's bed, watching her chest rise with the ventilator. His hand rests near hers, not touching yet, but close. Eva sits on the other side, eyes fixed on their daughter. Joshua is curled up asleep in Adams's lap, clutching his dinosaur, finally at peace. Through the ICU windows, dawn breaks, soft pink and gold spilling across the city. A new beginning. The moment everything changes. Rain tapped softly against the hospital windows, a gentler echo of the storm that had nearly taken Jasmine's life 3 nights before. The chaos had faded, the alarms had gone silent, and the frantic whisper of doctors rushing her into emergency care was now only a memory, one Eva still heard every time she blinked. Jasmine lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small against the white sheets. But today, for the first time in months, her breathing wasn't a desperate struggle. The tubes were gone. Her chest lifted in steady, peaceful rises, helped by the new medication Dr. Patel had insisted she try the moment Adams approved the transfer. Color warmed her cheeks again. Eva didn't trust it yet. Relief, she'd learned, was fragile. She sat by her daughter's bed, fingers brushing Jasmine's small hand, afraid that letting go might break the spell. On the other side of the room, Joshua slept curled like a question mark on the couch, his arms wrapped around a pillow that wasn't enough to replace the mother he'd clung to during every night of sickness and fear. And then there was Adams. He hadn't left. Not once. Still in the same $1,000 suit he'd worn the night Jasmine collapsed, though now it was wrinkled, the tie abandoned, the collar unbuttoned. His hair was unkempt, dark stubble shadowing his jaw. He slept slumped in the chair beside Jasmine's bed, his long frame folded in a way no billionaire should ever be seen. But he was there, present. The nurses whispered every time they passed the doorway, "Is that really Adams Whitmore?" Since when does a CEO sleep in a hospital chair? He hasn't left in 3 days? Eva heard it all, and she didn't know what to do with it. Her instincts, those sharp, survival-bred instincts, still pressed caution into her ribs. People could pretend, and men with power could pretend very convincingly. Michelle's voice echoed in her memory. Don't let your guard down yet. Not until his actions match his words. But then Jasmine stirred, eyelids fluttering, and Adams jerked awake instantly, like a man who'd trained himself to wake at the slightest sound of distress. His hands shook as he leaned forward. Jasmine? Sweetheart! His voice cracked. Her eyes opened slowly, her gaze drifting across the room until it found him. Hi, she whispered. Relief washed over him so visibly it seemed to soften the entire room. Eva's chest tightened. This wasn't acting. And it was that dangerous realization that brought her to speak the first real words they'd shared since the crisis. It was late, almost midnight. Both children were asleep. The lights dimmed to blue. The machine beside Jasmine beeped in a steady rhythm that had become a strange comfort. Eva didn't look at him when she spoke, staring instead at the blanket covering her daughter. Why now? She asked quietly. Why all of this now? What changed? Adams didn't answer right away. For once, he didn't reach for logic, defense, or control. He simply exhaled, slowly, like truth was something heavy he'd finally decided to set down. I saw my father in myself, he said. And I realized I was about to lose everything that mattered while protecting things that don't. Eva's head turned sharply. His eyes were red, lack of sleep or emotion, she couldn't tell. When my mother died, he continued, voice low, my father buried himself in work, meetings, money, control, anything that didn't require him to feel. And I spent my whole life swearing I'd never become him. His gaze drifted to Jasmine, sleeping peacefully. But I did. I became exactly what I hated. Eva swallowed, hard. And when I saw Jasmine fighting for breath, his voice broke. He pressed 2 fingers against his eyes. I knew I wouldn't survive losing her. Not without ever having been there. Not without trying. Silence settled between them. Not cold. Not sharp. Soft. Cautious. Human. Morning came slowly. Joshua woke first. His small hands rubbed sleep from his eyes, and when he saw Adam still in the chair, still in the same clothes, still there, he froze. You stayed, he whispered. Adams's smile was shaky, tentative. I'll always stay now. If you'll let me. Joshua blinked rapidly, as if testing the moment. Then he cleared his throat and said the most unexpected thing. Can you help me with my homework? Mama's too tired. The air shifted. Eva felt a sting behind her eyes. Adams looked startled, but only for a second. I can try, he said. 10 minutes later, the billionaire CEO of Whitmore Technologies sat on the floor, frowning at a first-grade math worksheet like it was the hardest negotiation of his life. No, Daddy, Joshua said patiently. That's not regrouping. That's just adding. Right. Adams rubbed his forehead. Of course. Eva had to turn away so he wouldn't see her smile. Then Jasmine woke again. She blinked up at him and whispered, Are you really my daddy now? Adams inhaled sharply. I've always been your father, he said gently. I just didn't know how to be your daddy. But I'm learning. I promise. Jasmine's lips curved in a sleepy smile. Can you read to me? He reached for the book on the nightstand. But his hands shook again, this time from emotion, not exhaustion, as he opened it. His voice wavered through the first page. Eva stood in the doorway, hand pressed to her chest, silent tears streaming. Jasmine's small fingers curled around Adams's wrist as he read, grounding him, anchoring him. He didn't look like a CEO. He looked like a man finally understanding what love costs and what it gives. And outside, the world exploded. News alerts pinged across phones. Tech billionaire Whitmore drops lawsuit, rushes to daughter's hospital bedside. Secret family? Public shock as Whitmore seen caring for child. In his corporate offices across the city, PR teams scrambled, executives panicked, journalists sharpened their angles. But when Thornton called, frantic, "Sir, we need to control this narrative," Adams glanced at Eva, then at his children, and ended the call. "No statements," he said firmly. "This isn't about my image. It's about my family." And that was that. The last image of the day was almost absurd in its tenderness. Adams feeding Jasmine lunch, getting more on himself than in her mouth. She laughed, a sound Eva hadn't heard in months. Joshua sat at the foot of the bed, drawing carefully with a blue crayon. When he finished, he held it up proudly. "My family." 4 stick figures holding hands. Eva covered her mouth with her hand. Because for the first time, something fragile and frightening and beautiful began to take shape. Hope. Courtroom 12 felt colder than Eva remembered. The marble walls absorbed sound, turning every whisper into a faint echo, a reminder that whatever happened inside these walls would change the twins' lives forever. Reporters pressed against the back row, their pens suspended like weapons. Michelle sat beside her, tense, alert, ready to shield Eva from whatever storm might follow. But Eva wasn't looking at them. Her eyes were locked on the man walking through the courtroom doors. Adams Whitmore. But not the version the world knew. He arrived alone, no towering entourage, no lawyers flanking him like armored soldiers. No expensive watch, no meticulously tailored suit meant to intimidate. Today he wore a simple charcoal suit, one that didn't scream wealth or power. He carried nothing but a single black folder in his hand. His steps were steady, his posture humble. And when his eyes found Joshua and Jasmine watching through a secure video feed from the hospital, he smiled. A small, soft, impossibly human smile. Eva felt her breath catch. This was a different man. Even Judge Anderson seemed momentarily taken aback. He cleared his throat before speaking. "Mr. Whitmore," the judge said, adjusting his glasses. "I see you've dismissed your countersuit. Would you like to explain this dramatic change?" A murmur swelled through the courtroom. Eva braced herself. Adams stepped forward. "Your Honor," he said quietly, "I'd like to address the court directly. Without counsel." Whispers erupted again. Shock, disbelief, speculation. Judge Anderson leaned back, studying him. "Very well," he said at last. "Proceed." Adams turned, not to the judge, not to the reporters, but to Eva and the twins. And then he began. "I spent 3 weeks," he said slowly, "trying to prove that biology doesn't make you a parent." His voice didn't shake, at first. "I was wrong." Every sound in the courtroom faded. Even the air stilled. "Biology doesn't make you a parent," he continued. "Choice does. Showing up does. Loving a child more than yourself does." He swallowed hard. "And for 7 years, I made the wrong choice. Eva's throat tightened. I chose my pride, my company, my carefully controlled life. His voice cracked on that word, life, as though realizing how hollow his had been. I chose everything except the two children who deserved better. His gaze moved to the hospital screen where Jasmine watched, small and fragile beneath her blankets. And 2 weeks ago, he said softly, I almost lost my daughter before I ever really knew her. He exhaled sharply, steadying himself. That's not something I can ever undo. But I can try, every day, to do better from this moment forward. Eva's tears blurred her vision. Then Adams opened the black folder. Your Honor, he said, I'm not just agreeing to child support. Michelle whispered, Oh God, under her breath. I'm establishing an annual commitment of $50 million, he continued, for Joshua and Jasmine Morris. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, shouts, disbelieving laughter. Even Michelle, who prided herself on never being surprised, stared at him with her mouth open. Judge Anderson blinked. Twice. Adams raised a hand for silence. The funds will be managed by an independent board, he said, dedicated entirely to their needs, medical care, education, security, opportunities. Everything they'll ever require to live a life of safety and possibility. He closed the folder gently. No stipulations. No control. His voice softened. Just support. The way a father should provide. Judge Anderson let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Mr. Whitmore, that's an extraordinary sum. Adams nodded. My children are extraordinary. And then, with a steadiness that cracked the room open, they deserve everything I can give them. Not because a court orders it, but because they're mine, and I love them. A sound escaped Eva, half sob, half breath. Her hands flew to her face as 7 years of fear, exhaustion, and lonely responsibility crashed into her all at once. Joshua clutched her arm, eyes wide. On the hospital screen, Jasmine smiled weakly, whispering, Daddy! The courtroom shifted. What had begun as legal warfare was becoming something else, something raw, human, undeniable. But Adams wasn't finished. Your Honor, he said, standing taller now, I'm also requesting joint custody, if Ms. Morris agrees. Eva stiffened, but he wasn't done. I'm not asking, he clarified, turning toward her, to take them from her. She's been their whole world. They need her more than anyone. A tear slipped down Eva's cheek. But I want to finally become the father they deserve. To be present. To show up. To earn the title they've been generous enough to give me. He swallowed hard. If they'll have me. Judge Anderson turned to Eva. Ms. Morris, your response? Eva stood, her legs trembling. She looked at Adams, really looked at him, at the humility in his posture, at the fear in his eyes, at the man who had slept in a hospital chair for 3 days straight, at the father who had almost missed his children's lives and was now fighting to make every day count. I never wanted to keep you from them, she said through tears. I just wanted you to choose them, to see them, to love them more than you love winning. Adams's voice cracked. I do, he whispered. I swear to you, Eva. I do. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, uncontrollably, the courtroom erupted into applause. Judge Anderson didn't stop it. He wiped his eyes instead, muttering, Well, I've seen a lot in my years, but never this. Reporters rushed out of the room, phones already dialing. The headline was writing itself. Billionaire's stunning courtroom confession. But Eva barely heard them. Because Adams was kneeling now, down at eye level with Joshua and Jasmine's video screen. "Can I hug you?" he asked softly. Not assuming. Not entitled. Just hopeful. Joshua didn't hesitate. He flew into his arms. And on the hospital screen, Jasmine reached out as though she could cross the distance through sheer will. Eva pressed her hand over her mouth. Because, for the first time, hope outweighed fear, and the world felt just a little bit right. 6 months had passed since the hospital's fluorescent lights had flickered over Jasmine's fragile form. Adams Whitmore no longer walked through the city with only his empire in mind. Today, he walked into a house that smelled faintly of crayons, warm bread baking in the oven, and a life that felt lived in, not merely controlled. It was modest, nothing like the gleaming towers of Whitmore Technologies or the palatial penthouse he had once called home. But it was theirs. The two-story house stood a few blocks from Eva's apartment, tucked into a quiet neighborhood. Inside, toys were scattered across the hardwood floors, finger paintings clung to the refrigerator with a mix of pride and chaos, and the walls bore traces of two children's imaginations. Dinosaurs roaming Joshua's bedroom, stars twinkling above Jasmine's bed. Adams knelt on the living room floor beside Jasmine, who was painstakingly constructing a castle from brightly colored blocks. Her tiny hands adjusted a tower. "Daddy, you're doing it wrong," she said, giggling. Adams held a crooked block in place and smiled. "My mistake, Princess. Where does this go?" Her brown eyes sparkled. "The tower goes on this side." For the first time in months, Adams noticed the full color of her cheeks, the energy that had been sapped away by relentless asthma attacks. The specialized treatments he had secured for her were paying off, but the deeper triumph was visible here, in the sound of her laughter, the gleam in her eyes. Joshua's voice drifted from the kitchen. "Daddy, can you help me stir the sauce?" Adams looked up to see him working alongside Eva. The twins' routines had intertwined. Co-parenting was not seamless, but it was real. Eva taught Joshua, Adams watched, and together they were building trust. One scraped knee, one bedtime story, one carefully guided block at a time. Later, Adams retreated briefly to check on his professional obligations. He had stepped back from the day-to-day management of Whitmore Technologies, appointing a capable CEO to oversee operations while he remained as board chairman. The company continued to grow. The wealth remained vast. But it no longer defined him. Outside, reporters were still piecing together the story of his courtroom transformation. Headlines screamed, "Tech Billionaire's Shocking Transformation," and "From Lawsuit to Love, Adams Whitmore's Journey to Fatherhood." Speculation ranged from the cynical PR stunt to the sentimental, genuine redemption. Adams didn't care. Their narrative wasn't his reality. His truth was here, in this home, in these children, in the daily acts of presence he now prioritized above all else. Evening fell. Adams tucked Jasmine into her bed. She studied him, serious and perceptive for her age. "Daddy, were you scared?" "When I was in the hospital." Adams's throat tightened. "Terrified. Sweetheart. More scared than I've ever been." She frowned, puzzled. "Why? You didn't even know us then." He took a deep breath. "Because the moment I saw you fighting to breathe, I realized I'd loved you my whole life. I just hadn't been brave enough to admit it." Jasmine nodded, her small hand brushing against his. "Mama says being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared." Adams's lips curved into a soft, proud smile. Your mama is very wise. Much wiser than I was. Later, Adams wandered the hallway and found Eva quietly gathering laundry. Thank you for finally showing up, Eva said, not accusing, just stating a truth that had weighed heavily for 7 years. Adams's eyes met hers. Thank you for giving me the chance. And for protecting them from me when I didn't deserve to know them. She shook her head slightly. I wasn't protecting them from you, Adams. I was protecting them from your absence. There's a difference. Adams absorbed her words, letting the truth settle. It stung, but it also anchored him. He nodded silently. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure they never doubt that I chose them, he said softly. That I'll always choose them. Eva's voice trembled, yet it carried relief and recognition. That's all any child needs. To be chosen. To be seen. To know they matter more than anything else. Later, Adams returned to the kitchen, the house alive with the soft sounds of evening. Clinking dishes, laughter from a cartoon playing faintly on the TV, the twins arguing over who got to stir the batter. The home wasn't tidy. Toys littered the floors. Sticky handprints decorated counters. And Adams didn't see clutter. He saw home. The walls were lined with photos. First steps, birthday parties, holidays, quiet afternoons at the park. Evidence of moments he had once missed, and now vowed never to again. He watched Joshua chase the dog into the living room, Jasmine balancing a block tower with unwavering concentration, and felt a steady warmth spread through his chest. Not pride. Not power. Not wealth. Presence. Love. Family. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments over homework, bedtime negotiations, and moments when Adams fumbled at the role he had once shirked. But there was consistency. There was choice. There was heart. And for the first time, he understood that real transformation wasn't flashy. It was lived, quietly, in the small daily acts that built trust and safety and love. As the night deepened, Adams sat at the edge of the twins' beds, brushing hair back, reading bedtime stories, listening to their soft breathing. Each sigh, each word, each laugh was a reminder that he was no longer a man who chose pride over children. He was a father, present, accountable, engaged. Outside, the city shimmered through the windows. Inside, the chaos of everyday life, the mess, the noise, the imperfection, was something Adams had longed for without realizing it. And as he looked around, his heart full, he knew this was what mattered. Not the empire he built, not the headlines he made, not the billions he counted. But this, the laughter, the tiny hands, the quiet moments of reassurance and guidance. This was wealth beyond measure. He turned to Eva in the kitchen. She smiled softly, a shared acknowledgement passing between them, words unnecessary, understanding complete. Adams whispered, I won't ever take them for granted again. I promise. Eva nodded. Then we all win. All of us. Outside the window, night settled over the modest house. Inside, love and presence filled the rooms. And for the first time in a long time, Adams felt a peace he could neither buy nor command, but could nurture and protect every single day. The apartment was silent. Night had draped the city in shades of indigo, punctuated only by the distant pulse of streetlights and the occasional honk from the avenue below. Adams Whitmore stood alone at the same window he had leaned against countless times before. Back when he thought he had everything, yet somehow felt empty. The city looked the same, but he didn't. Not anymore. He saw it differently. He exhaled slowly, letting his gaze drift across the twinkling skyline, letting it settle on the streets where children still ran and laughter spilled from homes like wind chimes. The certified letter he had once seen as a threat, the one that demanded responsibility, that challenged his pride, now sat in a folder untouched on the desk. What he had once perceived as danger had, in truth, offered him a gift money could never buy. The chance to be more than a businessman, more than a CEO, more than a name on a building. The chance to be someone's father. For decades, Adams had measured life in dollars and market share, convinced that control and power were the truest forms of security. Emotions were weaknesses. Connection was a distraction. Fatherhood had been an obligation he could litigate away, an inconvenience in his meticulously constructed life. Until he saw his daughter fighting for each breath, until he heard his son ask with raw, unguarded hope if he would help. The lesson was humbling. 6-year-old Jasmine, fragile yet fierce, had taught him more than every quarterly report, every acquisition, every boardroom victory ever could. True wealth wasn't in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It wasn't in influence or authority. It was in the bedtime stories whispered with care, in scraped knees kissed and bandaged, in "I love you, Daddy," and "Watch this, Dad." It was in showing up, even when it was uncomfortable or frightening, over and over again. Especially when it was hard. Yes, he had pledged $50 million annually, managed by an independent board, ensuring his children would never want for education, medical care, or opportunity. But even that monumental sum was secondary. The real gift, the irreplaceable treasure, was presence, time, love freely given after years of absence. He had searched his entire life for fulfillment. Success, control, power. None of it could fill the void left by the absence of connection, by the absence of family. And now, standing quietly at the window, Adams finally understood. He had found what he had truly been seeking all along. Not prestige. Not accolades. Not influence. He had found home. The following weekend brought sun and laughter in a city park, ordinary yet extraordinary. Adams chased his children across a grassy field, their squeals piercing the afternoon. Eva spread a blanket on the grass, settling with Michelle nearby, watching the new rhythm of their lives. Joshua and Jasmine darted past, their small limbs carrying them as fast as their joy could. Adams, billionaire CEO, was just another dad. A father. Not untouchable, not untouchably powerful, just present. Jasmine paused mid-run, determined. "Daddy, watch me do a cartwheel." She attempted the move, tumbling awkwardly and scraping her knee. Adams's chest constricted, panic shooting through him, a reflex from the months of hospital alarms and emergency calls. Eva knelt beside her, calm. "Kids fall, Adams. It's okay. She's okay." Jasmine popped up, unshaken. "Did you see, Daddy? I almost did it." Adams exhaled, relief flooding him. "You were amazing, sweetheart." He ruffled her hair, grateful for the resilience that mirrored his own hard-earned lessons. Joshua tugged at his hand. "Daddy, can you push me on the swing?" The simplicity of the request made Adams's chest tighten. He obeyed, pushing his son higher and higher, hearing the delighted shouts. "Don't let go!" "Never," Adams promised, squeezing Joshua's hands tightly. "I'll never let go again." Eva watched from a distance, a small smile playing across her lips. Michelle nudged her gently. "You did good, Eva." "We all did," Eva replied softly. "It just took him longer to get there." Michelle's eyes followed Adams and the twins as the afternoon sunlight painted golden streaks across their skin. "The best dads aren't the ones who start perfect," she said. "They're the ones who choose to become better." A stranger, noticing the family's laughter and closeness, approached and offered to take a photograph. 4 of them huddled together on the blanket, not posed, not perfect, real. Adams's gaze was fixed entirely on his children, pure love radiating in his stance. Eva had her arm around Jasmine. Joshua made a silly face. The camera clicked, capturing a single moment of ordinary perfection. Later, that photo would sit on Adams's desk at Whitmore Technologies, a reminder that, despite the empire, this was what mattered most. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of coral and violet, Adams watched the twins play. Eva remained nearby, the comfortable silence between them a testament to shared struggles and mutual understanding. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, her voice soft, almost contemplative. "Stepping back from the company?" Adams shook his head slowly. "I regret the 7 years I lost. But I'm grateful for every day I have now." "They're lucky to have you," Eva said. Adams smiled gently, eyes following Jasmine spinning in the grass and Joshua skipping by her side. "I'm the lucky one. You gave them life. You gave them everything. I just finally showed up." Evening faded, and the family gathered their belongings. Adams carried a sleeping Jasmine to the car. Joshua held his other hand, small and warm, trusting him completely. Eva walked beside them, steady and proud. They moved together through the parking lot, a family that had been forged through struggle, fear, and ultimately, choice. And in every way that mattered, they were whole. Adams Whitmore learned that the most valuable inheritance isn't measured in millions. It's measured in moments. First words, scraped knees, bedtime stories, and unconditional love. He'd spent a lifetime building an empire. But in the end, 2 6-year-old children taught him what true wealth really means. Because family isn't about biology or money. It's about choice, choosing to show up, choosing to stay, choosing love over pride. Every single day. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about redemption, family, and what truly matters. Share in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between being right and doing right? Remember, our children don't need perfect parents. They need the present ones. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family.